Calling all consumer goods business owners and marketing professionals. Does planning content ahead of time stress you out? Do you want to run Instagram and Facebook ads but just aren't sure where to start? If your answer is yes and yes, then our mini course was made for you. It's 100% free and packed with essential tactics that you can implement as soon as today. To join in, visit our website at umaimarketing.com/mini-course. All right, let's get on with the pod.
Welcome to the Umai Social Circle, where we talk consumer goods tips to help business owners and marketers grow. We're Alison and Karin, co-founders of Umai Marketing, and we are being joined today with Stef and Lindsey from the Rind PR. They are back for our 4-part series where we're auditing young CPG brands on PR and digital marketing. So welcome everyone to episode 3. We are diving into Sippin Snax, which offers gourmet snacks that pair perfectly with your craft beer, your wine, your cocktails. So it's a really interesting brand who they seem like they partnered with mostly tap rooms and wineries. But due to COVID, when we all had to pivot, they also pivoted and started getting into the D2C genre, D2C presence, what have you. So really interesting concept. Would love to hear, everyone's thoughts on this brand and this concept in general.
Yeah, I mean, I like to drink alcoholic beverages and I like to have snacks so I don't get too drunk, and also to just, have everything taste better. So what could be bad about this, really? And yeah, I think it's a cool idea. And, so many bars and tap rooms and whatnot have food trucks or different things, or, sometimes there'll be like a bag of chips or something, but this is definitely like taking it to another level to make it a little bit more fun than just kind of like, oh, I need to eat something, because I'm drinking.
Yeah. And salt makes you want to drink more. So this is in the best interest of the B2B, wine rooms and tap rooms. So
yeah. So hopefully everyone is selling, like making a profit off of this.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's a super interesting idea, kind of one that's like, oh, maybe there are some other similar things, though I haven't really seen, any products geared to specifically to this. So, obviously great idea. And then we kind of took a look, from a PR standpoint, the first thing we look at is messaging. So we really liked the tagline on the homepage, which says snack more, sip more, which is basically, I think what you were just saying, Alison, like if you are snacking more, it's salty, you want to drink more, and it's like a cyclical thing until eventually they make you leave. So yeah, that's a great kind of tagline. We also noticed, and I think maybe you'll notice this too, like the snacks aren't really pictured on the homepage, which is slightly confusing. Like the tagline is great, but you don't really see what it is. There's kind of a cool, I don't really know if this is a video. I guess it's a GIF of someone pouring wine, but still no snacks. I guess towards the bottom, you see a couple options, but it shows a t-shirt first, which is cool, but probably shouldn't be like at the forefront of what it is. I think just overall showing people what the product is, at the top of the homepage is gonna, kind of like, because people won't scroll down if they don't see it, if they are not like, oh, this looks delicious. You want to maximize that reach by putting it at the top.
I feel like it really like sit more, snack more. That's a great tagline, especially because I feel like they are geared towards B2B. Mm-hmm. But regardless, I agree. I think it's really important to show off what it is, front and center before anyone has to scroll.
And I feel like it's such a fun brand and such a fun concept that I would want to see people enjoying the product, especially since there's, it's a pretty straightforward product. And the more lifestyle shots I see, the more I'm going to want to buy it and eat it.
Yeah. And, one thing that I kind of was noticing, obviously we're in a weird place in terms of pandemic, like I don't think anywhere, at least in the United States, there are places where we're really like stuck at home and not going to like the tap rooms and the bars anymore. So it kind of becomes a thing where like, I see why they changed, I'm assuming changed or created this website for people to like, like the D2C thing to have it at home. But I don't know. Another thing that was kind of confusing to me too is that there's a link to Hops and Nuts. I don't know if you all saw that too. I saw it on their social media.
I saw that on Instagram.
And I think if I were to guess that the Hops and Nuts is if it's like a bar or a tap room buying it, and then the Sippin Snax is at home. So maybe
I think the Hops and Nuts may have been the original product.
Yeah.
The Sippin Snax kind of came out of, right? I think that was what I kind of was guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Hops and Nuts was when they had B2B, but it says like on their homepage that after the pandemic hit, 60% of their accounts wouldn't make it back to be able to reopen. So that's why they brought in Sippin Snax to be their retail grocery and D2C offering. But I completely agree. I think it's really confusing the way it's laid out there. And if you're going to want to go all in on the D2C, go all in. Don't make it confusing to the consumer.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it took us all a little bit to get to the point where like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And it is
have that much time with the consumer that stumbles
exactly.
No one's going to look as hard as we did when we were trying to do this audit.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think like, of course it's part of your story and it's totally fine to mention that somewhere, but I think, it's kind of just picking one with your messaging, not having to fully connect it. Like, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, too much. At least, it's interesting because I kind of feel like at the beginning of the pandemic, this would have been like a great media pitch, like a pandemic pivot, right? But at this point, that's not necessarily what people are looking for. I think people are just literally wanting to think like, oh, I can enjoy these at home because I'm going to drink at home and I'm going to snack at home, So I think, just kind of like honing in on that, not spending too much time telling the backstory, at least at this point.
Are you saying sense. Like there's too much language surrounding the pandemic still, and it should just be about like, enjoy this at home and pair it with your favorite craft beer?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I love, what did you say? Pandemic pivot. I love that term. That's a good one.
I'm sure it's a hashtag. But, so many businesses had to do that. Like you think of, I don't know, the most obvious example I think of is like a restaurant that, actually like Ryan Lewis is an example. You all started bottling sauces and rubs and things. Whereas before it wasn't even really necessary to sell these products you would use at home, one, to make money, and two, to like provide some kind of service to your customers. So many restaurants are like, okay, like I'm going to bottle this sauce so I can make some money off of this. So there's, I feel
like it's almost like nearly every business had to pivot in some way, in some capacity. So I feel like it's almost, to me, like the farm to table movement, where like almost every restaurant is pretty much farm to table. So like saying it, everybody's already doing it. So it's almost unnecessary. It's expected, I guess. So I feel like overtelling the story, I think it should be a part of the story because it explains why the name change, or just the idea of like how the product is intended to be used and consumed. So I feel like it's definitely a part of the story, but I think, I guess our advice would be to just kind of hone in on that messaging and just kind of, really just, zhuzh it, as they say. And I think less said, more direct is definitely better. Especially on a website where people don't necessarily want to read paragraphs and paragraphs of a story, no matter how interesting. I think as straightforward as you can possibly be while still calling out like the most important pieces of information, which can be really hard. But I think having like an outside eye sometimes just helps in like distilling that down.
Yeah, it's so hard to write your own about us.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
like one of the most,
sure. I mean, even for us.
Yeah, you would think it would be like, second nature, but it's really difficult. But like the founder looks really cool and fun and spunky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know her name. I don't know their name.
Right. That's true.
I don't know, why they started this business. Why have they been in the beer industry? There's probably a really cool story. And I love that they're showing up like with their face and everything, but would love to know more.
Yeah, that was a note that we had as well. It's also kind of interesting because if you go to look at the topic of the website, it kind of mentions two different like accolades in a sense, like the KHE Diverse Trend Selection. And it's kind of not totally clear what that award was. It's like golden ticket winners for diversity. Like it mentions the quote from them: "We believe that women, BIPOC, LGBTQIA plus veterans, etc." That's the diversity. But I think, playing up that diversity, not just kind of like, oh, here's an award we won that is for that, but like more in that about section. Like, this is who I am. This is how I'm diverse. We talked about this, I think, I can't remember which previous episode now, but like, women founded, or, like people are looking for those sorts of like, like looking for people with diverse backgrounds to support for that reason. And at least kind of like spread the love. So I think whatever a founder is comfortable sharing about themselves, it's only going, for the most part, I think it's only going to help them, at least in the world we live in today, like by proudly saying those things.
Yeah, I think those keywords too also help when media are looking at your website or your Instagram profile, and they're considering coverage, especially if there are a few products like in consideration, having some sort of like differentiator and keyword called out, not necessarily as, a spotlight on it, like, look at this, but it definitely, I think, helps in terms of like identifying brands to support, like Stef said.
Yeah, exactly. And then, kind of going back to what we were saying before, I think maybe just consolidating somehow the Hops and Nuts and the Sippin Snax on the same website would make it more cohesive, or just picking one name for both. Because I think that if this website can talk about like places they have been available, or like even specific brands they've worked with and specific brand pairings, that will add a level of credibility, and like why you want to buy it and enjoy it at home. Or even just like, it says on the package, like pairs with red wine or like various things, but I think honestly, this kind of goes into probably a next thought about like-minded brands and that sort of thing, like for social and for influencers and whatnot. But it's basically like, if trying to think of a good example, like if there's a brewery and they sell the product, or they pair really well, like a very specific, like I don't know, like a stout pairs well with these, then they can also, that other brand can share on their accounts, and it just raises the awareness overall. But besides that, it adds like a level of credibility. Like if I was a media person and I went on the website and I saw that like, oh, this brewery and this distillery that I've heard of also sell them, or like pairs well with them, then you're more likely to want to cover it than either something that just doesn't have those like kind of call outs, like for lack of better, for credibility, to be like, okay, this is more legit. Other people like it, so it's probably good.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of something I was thinking about too, just like while I was on the Instagram account, and just like thinking about like how would I enjoy these, like, opportunities for, getting in front of influencers, and like using, whether you have connections in the industry that, you know, were former retailers or former like wholesale accounts, leaning on them to promote on their end is such a great like value add. And, you know, like thinking about like lifestyle photography, you know, sending out your product to influencers and having them post, you can use that user generated content on your own account. And it's just great ways to really like showcase like how the product is used. But it's such a fun brand. And I feel like I want to see more like in action or like with like alongside drinking. Cause I feel like we see like, a lot of product shots, or just drinking shots, but I want to see them coming together and being enjoyed together. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to do like collaborations or like partnerships with, you know, whether that is just like local, like starting small, with local breweries or local distilleries. And then maybe it's engaging with, you know, more regional, partners, you know, statewide, and then kind of opening that up even more, but, you know, based on like where you're selling and where your customers are. But, yeah, I would love to see more sipping and snacking together.
Nice correction.
Yeah. And, you know, we kind of took a look to see if there was any influencer shares. You normally just look at the kind of like tagged part on an Instagram account, and there really wasn't anything there. So, you know, I think it's just like adding influencers as part of a PR campaign. In a similar sense, it could be, starting like local, again, thinking about where your brand is available and then trying to build awareness there. That way, I mean, if it's a D2C thing, you can kind of get it anywhere. But, you know, if you are tying in the tap rooms and other actual places to go, then focusing on those like parts of the country or parts of the state makes sense. And, you know, like maybe people want to go try it at the brewery before they buy a bunch for their house too. And yeah, that's kind of, I think, where some of those influencer packages that like Lindsey was kind of mentioning can play in. And you could potentially, you know, like if there's a local brewery that your snacks are sold at, then you put together a cool package with your, you know, whatever product, whatever snack pairs with a beer from there. And then maybe also, I don't know, like a pint glass that's branded either with the, like it could be a Sippin Snax pint glass. Doesn't even have to be the brewery's pint glass. Or there's probably some other fun things. That's kind of like the obvious one. It could be a wine glass. It could be, be a cocktail recipe that pairs really well with it. And, you know, like there is some amount that you have to spend when you're giving influencers like product for free, exchange for them sharing, and then buying some of these like additional glasses and like merch and stuff. But, you know, overall, I mean, of course we're biased, but we have found, you know, based on our experience, of course, that those are the sorts of things that do build the kind of awareness that brands kind of need. So more people are continuing to know about the product and actually buy it. So, you know, you don't have to go crazy. You can start locally with a few influencers. And then once you're like, oh, okay, like I saw how this worked, then you can expand.
Yeah. So a question on that, because I do feel the same when you said start locally, that this brand really should put a lot of effort in like North Carolina, California, where they already have relationships that seem to be going well. So how do they go about finding local influencers to work with? I feel like my approach, and I don't know if Stef is, if she does this as well, but like, I think about like, well, first of all, I think about who the customer is, like who's actually buying these. Is it, you know, do they love craft beer? Like, where would they go? What would they do? And then I
kind of make like a mental list or actual list of other brands and businesses that these target customers would actually go to or would follow, and potentially post about, because you want people who are, posting about these brands. So then I would go to those accounts and kind of work back and see who has posted there, and like looking at their like tagged photos on Instagram, and kind of work back that way. If you are completely unfamiliar with influencers in that region. But I think having an idea of like who your competitors or who your like-minded brands are is like one of the biggest assets to how to approach influencers and media too. Because, with media, you want to know like where your competitors are being covered and how they're being covered and how they're being talked about. And then other types of brands, in that space, or other types of businesses in that same space. So then you're, going to a local publication, or newspaper, and then seeing the types of stories that these competitors or like-minded brands are being written about in, and seeing who's writing these stories. So you're kind of you're reverse engineering the story or the opportunity, essentially. So I think that's probably the most direct yet somewhat tedious way,
but free.
Right. But
the free version. Yeah,
exactly.
And what you said about competitors, that's not, that's something you need to know for every piece of your business.
Yeah,
really.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important. And, not only keeping a tab on what other people are doing and how they're innovating, and, what the big brands are doing. So you can get, some insights there, but also just kind of, staying inspired. We're big on inspo. We even have a Facebook group where we pull inspo from, the big brands for email, paid social, and organic social, because creating content is hard. Like it's a hard job. And you really got to stay on top of it in order to create quality content. So definitely follow your competitors on Instagram or sign up for their newsletter. You can do it from your private account, but definitely follow them around. And just to reiterate what Lindsey was saying, so basically you're just going into Instagram, going to either influencers or like local retailers in your space, and then like looking at the tags to find, is that how you're saying it works?
Yeah. Cool. Looking at the tags. And, obviously if you're going to, so like for Sippin Snax, for example, if there was a local brewery that was a, craft brewery that has a good following, that's pretty on brand, I would go into the tagged photos and kind of take a look through the like top. So if you're doing it on, I think if you do it on maybe like a desktop, I don't know if it does it on your phone. But a lot of times you can see like the top photos, and then you can sort it by recent. So I would take a look at like what the top photos are, which are going to be like, have like higher engagement, or looking at influencer posts that have a similar aesthetic to your brand. So that's another thing too, is like, you could find some really great influencers, but they may not necessarily be a fit aesthetic wise or exactly like what you're looking for. So like if you found an influencer that has a ton of followers, 100,000 followers, and posted about craft beer, but is more of like a fashion influencer or something, it may not necessarily be as much of a fit as a influencer that is more into like food, beverage, hospitality space, but has 20,000 followers. So I'd also take into consideration not just the like engagement or follower count, but also like what type of content they're posting. I think that's really important too. So there's a lot of factors I think that go into, considering an influencer campaign. And I feel like I could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
But definitely like that's, I think, the easiest way to like find influencers in your region that may potentially be a fit. And then you can kind of narrow it down from there.
Yeah, definitely work with influencers who look like your ideal customer. There's no need to go beyond that. It's not going to make sense. I don't know if you guys heard that groan.
I did.
Oh man, he just groans every time he lays down like he's had the hardest life, the hardest day.
I thought he was just disagreeing with everything we were saying. That's not right.
Oh man. Well, awesome. Okay, so anything else on the PR side before we hop on over to digital side? Digital marketing.
I kind of feel like that's it. We probably have some other related things to what you're about to say, but I think we pretty much hit all our main talking points that we found.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I think we're going to have a little bit of overlap too, because it's a lot of the things obviously that we were seeing. So let's dive into the marketing side, the digital marketing side, and specifically Instagram first. So going back to what you guys were talking about in like not knowing what Sippin Snax is versus Hops and Nuts and how they're both, well, Sippin Snax tags Hops and Nuts, but Hops and Nuts doesn't tag Sippin Snax. I think the clarity can be done. Obviously, there's a lot to be done on the website. And I think for a brand to invest in new branding and packaging, they understand the importance of investing in their brand. So I hope that, if they want to go forward with Sippin Snax and make it the real deal product that they want it to be, the website needs a lot of updates. But for now, when we're talking about Instagram, I think a lot of that differentiation can happen in the bio, just for clarity's sake. So Sippin Snax, gourmet bar snacks. I like the name. That's completely fine. You have your snack more, sip more headline, tagline. And then it says from tap and tasting room approved Hops and Nuts. But then when I go to Hops and Nuts, it's not very clear what that is. So I would make it really, really clear. If Hops and Nuts is your brand that's B2B and that's the product that's in the wineries and tap rooms, be more specific here so it's less confusing. And I would put that at the end. Unless Hops and Nuts is this really established, reputable source, it doesn't really need to be there, in my opinion, because people don't know what that is anyways. So just for clarity's sake, just cleaning that bio up can make that really helpful. But what really excites me is how awesome the branding is. And I love the naming. It's like lager and lime. Okay, I definitely need to eat these Kraft peanuts with the lager. It's so straightforward and fun. I think the content can be there, can match it for sure. So a big rule that we like to stick by, we hard and fast with rules. It's all great, but we want people to stick to kind of 80-20. So 80% entertaining content, 20% sales focused. And when I look at the feed now, while I'm excited about the fun, the animations, the GIFs, the videos, it all says the same thing. So I'm looking at the top 12 posts. 10 of them say snack more, sip more. Graphically somewhere, not 10 of them, like 7 of them, maybe 8, maybe 9. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 12. 9 out of 12 say snack more, sip more. I love that you're trying to get the point across, but it's so sales heavy. There's no reason for someone to follow you because they can guess what you're going to post next. What we want to do is really establish those messaging buckets that we've talked about in the past episodes. Think education, recipes, community-focused stuff, behind the scenes. I love that the one reel is the founder kind of showing face, but there can be so much more of that. And I want you to jump into reels and think of like really fun series that you can do. For example, someone doing a drink and a snack pairing, talking about the flavors and just having it be a running series. If it's the founder, even better. You can also do a cocktail making series where you make cocktails and it's just like a really beautiful, real recipe style video and you're snacking at the same time while you're making the cocktail. There's so many fun things that you can do. And if you don't have somebody on your team doing it, you can find one of these micro influencers that are super interested in the product that want to maybe make affiliate commission for promoting the product and making content for you. So lots of great opportunity there. And then, making the snacks look really delicious. Right now, I think that you guys do a really great job of featuring the actual product. I think you can pull back on that a little bit because when we talk about 80-20, just a little bit less salesy to give people a reason to follow. Why are they following you? You want to build community. You want to give them something. So give them recipes, give them education, give them something fun to scroll past and really get excited about. And then one other thing that I was thinking is you guys already mentioned it, but the amount of collaborations that can be done with this brand, they're endless. There's so many different alcohol companies, like alcohol accessory companies. There's so many different brands that would be so fun to do giveaways and collaborations with, which will help boost your social proof, your followers, your engagement, all of that good stuff, your brand awareness. So collaborating with as many people as you can. And what we recommend is wherever you guys are creating your content or storing your content calendar, or if you're not doing that yet, just simply creating a Google sheet and making a long list of people that would be your dream partners. So people that really make sense to collaborate with your brand, and then reach out to them. And we always tell people to shoot their shot, no matter how big a brand is. If they look at yours, they're like, oh my gosh, that branding's awesome. The product is so amazing. I haven't seen something like this before and I want to try it myself. They just might partner with you. So that is definitely what I think you guys should be doing. And we recommend doing these partnerships like 2 times a month when you're in that high growth phase. So try that out. And then the last note I'm going to say on Instagram, because I'm pummeling you with a lot of stuff, even though I think you're doing an amazing job with getting content out at the rate that you are, is go beyond that constant call to action to snack more, sip more that I just mentioned, and tell the reader why they should. Like when I'm reading the caption or when I'm looking at the creative, why should I? There's so many different reasons to want to do it. Tell me why I can't live without your product, why I need it in my bar cart at all times. I just went hard, y'all. Do you guys have any thoughts about Instagram?
That's so true. And I was thinking too, like incorporating photos or reels in like different scenarios of like how to enjoy. So like the first thing I was thinking about, like after, having like Chex Mix at a bar, which I love, this is like an actual like elevated version of that, was like having this at home for a party or game night. And like that for me, like I don't necessarily like to cook or put together amazing charcuterie boards or anything like that. Well, I would love to. I would love to have something that's like easy that I know people are going to like, that is like a little bit different than just like pouring out a, container of pretzels or whatever it is. So like showcasing fun scenarios where this like could and should be enjoyed, and like why people, like you said, why people need it. But yeah, I was thinking like, man, if I saw this, like if I saw a game night, I'd be like, oh, I do need to host a game night and I should buy a couple of these bags and maybe I'm going to get a couple different kinds. So I just like having that, like that inspo so readily accessible for people to view it, either whether that's like on the website or on Instagram, I think is like light bulb moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that there's a lot of power in UGC style content. We all know this. And a lot of this looks to be stock photography or just like more produced images. And it's like, give this to so many micro influencers, see what you can get from it, find ones that are true advocates of it that are like, I'm obsessed with this. I have to have this chocolate porter every time I'm having a porter now. And you're going to get a lot better content. And I love what you're saying. It's like, if you have wine night with your girlfriends once a week and you see these ladies having wine and whatever vineyard red craft peanuts at the same time, it's like, oh, I need to have that with our wine next time, like I think the opportunity is here because it's so specific, like they have really honed in on who their customer is, it seems like. So I think that's a really fun opportunity. So much that can happen. I mean, it's exciting. I just like when I see a brand like this and I'm like, ooh, if our team could just get our hands on it, that's always like a good thing. Cause it's like, I feel like there's a lot of legs, like that's beautiful branding, lots of colors to work with, lots of different types of products that will lend itself to different types of content. I think it's a fun brand for sure. So with the website, Allison, what were you seeing?
Yeah, I just kind of want to reiterate because Stef and Lindsey brought up a lot of good website points. So, about the hero image, just showing off more product, showing off more lifestyle images. And then again, with the shop section, in your collection section, where all of your products are laid out, always feature the best sellers first. I don't think that's your t-shirt. Your t-shirt is showing up first. If it is, then my bad. But generally you want your best sellers to be front and center so that it's easy for people to just click and shop. Again, there's also a collection on the front page too. So just make sure that the right products are being shown on the homepage, and then they're in the right order on the collections page. Another thing that we were thinking, if you are going to continue pursuing D2C, it would be a great move to bundle your products. So bundle your 2 to 3 bestsellers, or bundle a salt tea, pack, and bundle a sweet pack. And that's just going to help get your average order value higher. Right now, I think it's, at $7. Obviously, people can buy multiples, but you really need product bundles that are, at least over $20. That's just going to help. If you ever decide to run ads, it's just going to help you make a return a lot faster. And, you have a lot of that data in your back end. If you're using Shopify or whatever platform you're using, you can generally see, customer bought always buys this and this. So you can start to understand the patterns there. So use that knowledge to create those bundles. And then I am not going to lie, I'm still a little confused about Sippin Snax versus the hops and nuts.
Mm-hmm.
So because there's wholesale on Sippin Snax. So, if you don't want to link that wholesale page from Sippin Snax over to hops and nuts, then, consider adding the where to buy, or like where we're located on that wholesale page. Consider building it out to look like a true wholesale page, and showing off a map and showing people like, we're at your bar 5 miles down the road. Because otherwise it's just confusing and it just feels like it's a missed opportunity at this point. But I will say, like Karin and everyone else has said, it's gorgeous branding. And the website is, it's nice looking, you've done a great job. It's just kind of cleaning some things up and getting a little organized. And earlier I said I didn't know your name. I do. It's Melissa, but I just meant adding that to the About Us. It seems like you have a cool story, and, sharing and relating to your consumers, your customers, and the About Us section of your website, I think could really go a long way. Any other web thoughts, y'all?
No, I think, you definitely hit some of the things I was thinking about, just in terms of like wholesale, how to distinguish. And I think, Stef brought this up earlier, but, as you're signing on retailers, having a list of where it's available to purchase, even though somebody who visits your website may not be able to purchase it from that retailer's website, gives credibility. And so if writers or influencers or anybody or customers are going to your website and they're scrolling through and they're trying to decide, if they want to buy, and they see that it's, actually available at a couple of their favorite breweries or distilleries or wineries, it's just kind of, it gives it a certain level of credibility. And I think it also opens up the doors for, for more collaborations. There's just so many possibilities when you make that information known.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I love the idea of the bundles for many reasons, but it's also a really good way to collaborate. Like, granted, they might end up having to make some sort of new product. So I don't know, obviously, how challenging that is. But if it's a limited edition thing, like if there is a brewery and you're doing like a bundle that is like co-branded with them, you could have like one like paired with each of their beers, and then it would kind of be like a more equal partnership where everyone's promoting it. And so it's like a limited edition thing where like you can pitch that to media and to influencers. And kind of like the pattern with, customer behavior is that if something is limited edition, you're gonna like act to buy it versus being like, I can buy this anytime. Like versus the like, oh, it's only limited edition. There's only so many. If I don't get this now, then I might not get it at all. And obviously a good way to get in front of like the brewery or the winery's audience. So yeah, I think just like the bundles in general are good, but I think we just kind of keep being like, so many cross promotional opportunities here.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's something that I think you should really just keep in your back pocket, that, instead of if you're e-commerce brand, instead of like always running sales or things like that, like there's other ways to produce scarcity through like these limited edition products or collaborations. What is that? Omsum does an amazing job at doing those types of collaborations, and they're limited, you can only get until they sell out.
Yeah,
and
I love those.
They do a really good job. Yeah. I think they did one with Disney recently.
Oh yeah. Really was it for the Turning Red movie? Fishwife also does really cool ones. I feel like the Fishwife, it's the like canned fish, which doesn't sound sexy, but it is. They did something with like Fly by Jane, which also does a lot of collabs. And yeah, I think that's already like back ordered. So yeah, there's a lot of
and you don't have to
out there.
Yeah, you don't have to go to Disney. Like
yeah, you don't have to start there.
You can go local. Just make sure that, the input is worth the output. It can be a lot on brands to produce those limited, quantity, limited edition things. So, but always something to test and keep in your back pocket. I think that's really interesting. So yeah, that's web. That's a wrap on web. I think we all touched on it.
I have one thing for web.
Oh, Karen's got one thing for web.
Just because when I'm on the homepage, I can't get over this. And I think that the product is too good to just like completely ignore like this. So when I'm on the homepage, all I see is a big sign that says snack more, sip more. And I have no idea what that means in this moment. And like, I know that we're talking about like, it's a good tagline and that's great. But it's kind of what I'm hearing is like, okay, if I eat more stuff, I can drink more stuff. And like, that's kind of the message I get. But when I scroll down, I see another tagline that I think I like more, y'all. It's craft a great pairing with Sippin Snax. Like craft a great, like it's actually telling me that there's like a pairing element, that there's like a drink this, this, And so like, in my mind, I'm like, craft a great pairing and then have the actual pairing as a visual would be so strong. I'd be like, oh, that's what this is. That's what I'm doing. So there's a lot to be said with crafting a great website, but that homepage, that header image is so important that I would play with kind of testing that to see if you get more clicks. Do you guys?
Yeah, so I think we all agree that we need some product or some lifestyle sip and snack as the hero. But what Karen's saying is testing the snack more, sip more versus, what was it, Karin? Craft a great pairing.
Yeah.
So that could be something that you, just ask your friends and family or run a survey. You can also run like a website A/B test. It's really difficult to get results on A/B test when you're a young brand, however. So it might be something that you would need to reach out to friends to really solidify that, unless you're, sold on what it currently is. But I think that's really interesting that that's what stood out to you, Karin.
Yeah. And I memean, there's so much space in between that header and the next section and that home tainting. I don't know what that means. It
just clicked for me. What is entertaining?
Yeah. That's one thing that I was kind of calling out earlier. Like, it's so in your face that this is like only for at home, but then it gets confusing because they're like wholesale. Like, I'm assuming you don't wholesale to your house. I don't know. You really want a lot of product, but
and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is pandemic pivot. Like,
yeah, 100%. It's clear that's what it was.
Yeah, we're all trying to figure it out and understand, what the best avenue is, and maybe that's what's happening here. So hopefully there's enough time that's passed that you can understand which direction you can take, and then just get very literal on your website about that direction. Okay. Any other web thoughts?
No, my last thought after being like, the website needs a lot of work, which I'm sure you already know. That's why you're asking for input on it, is that this is a product. And I look at a lot of snacks all day. Like, that's all I do. I look at snacks, food and bev. And this is a product where I'm like, oh, dang, this is a good idea. And this looks delicious. And I know that people would want this, So I just keep that in your mind as you hear us talking about all the things that can be improved, because like, we think the product is awesome. Like, this is it's a really nice idea. It's cool. And I think it works so good B2B and direct to consumer. So it's great work. It's great work.
Yeah, great work. And definitely want to get some and try it. I mean, the flavors look really fun too. So, okay. So moving on to paid social. So, it's very difficult to do a paid audit when there's no ads running. I don't know if you've ever run ads. So just bear with me. My overall first thoughts were B2B, honestly. That's where I would, think that your brand was heading. Now that, we're talking about pandemic pivot, there could be room to run B2B retailer, driven ads and D2C ads. For D2C ads, though, you got to get that AOV up. You got to bundle some things, because you're not going to make a return if you're selling a $7 product. It really needs to be closer to the $40 range. I know I said minimum 20, but really we want it closer to 40. You can always do like upsells and cross sells, or get them on your email list to continue that selling pattern. But with D2C, just like everyone was saying, we want to see more lifestyle, more UGC, user generated content. It doesn't have to mean that you need to pay influencers to create that content for you. You look like you probably have a lot of friends. So host a party, give your snacks away to your friends and family, and just be like, take 5 iPhone shots for me. And hopefully you can use some of those. Just people using the product and sipping on the correct alcohol with the product is really what we would want here. And that's what makes great ads. If you ever do an influencer campaign, getting any of those influencer posts or stories and running those as ads, pushing them to your website, asking, for sales. Also, recipes could be a thing here. A lot of the nut brands that we've worked with in the past, we, grind up the nuts and add them to a salad and just, have all these, there's a lot of different messaging buckets that you could fall into. So that's another thing that, could potentially work well for an ad for D2C. But in terms of B2B, where I think that there's a lot of potential for growth, it looks like you already have a really long list of retailers that you work with, businesses that you work with. So there's some things that you could do to increase that reach, increase the amount of stores that you get into, and then also allow the consumers that live around those stores to be aware that they can find you at XYZ tap room. So we call those geo-targeted campaigns. And geo-targeting just basically means you're targeting people who live within a certain radius of a zip code or a specific address. So for B2B, if you want to expand your B2B presence, you could, pull in an address, like say you really want to get into this new winery across town. So you can actually pull that address and target people within 5 miles of that address, and also target people who own wineries and hopefully get in front of the person that owns that winery. It's a really interesting way to increase your touch points before you actually call the person on the phone and say, hey, I have this product. They've likely seen your ads a couple of times. So it's a really interesting way to get those touch points in before you actually make contact with someone. And these types of ads are really inexpensive too. So generally for geo-targeting campaigns, we spend $5 a day, and our objectives are the cheaper objectives like reach. And you can reach 1,000 people for $2 to $3 on Meta or TikTok. So something interesting you could try. And that's for getting into new businesses, for targeting consumers. So say you're in, this specific winery and you need to push product. You need people to, be asking for Sippin Snax when they go to this winery. So you can target people who live within a 10-mile radius of this winery and show off your UGC style ad, show off, your product with the wine, and just, let them know that you're there so that they know they're already familiar with your brand. They know to go there if they want your product, all those things. And like I said, those types of ads are generally very inexpensive. So that could be a very, very small budget if that's something you want to test out. We got thoughts?
That's a lot less expensive, right? It's just like not even like a little bit less expensive. It's a lot less expensive to do those.
It is so much less expensive, yes. So we kind of like label it as like high cost and lower cost in terms of the objectives you can choose on Meta and TikTok and all those platforms. So the high cost ones, it's going to cost a lot of money to ask someone to buy from you. That's going to be probably the highest cost thing that you can ask for. So that's like your D2C ads. After that, it's most likely going to be asking for an email address or something like that, like a registration, an add to cart. Anything in the checkout flow is going to be expensive, and that cost per mil for those cost to reach 1,000 people for those more expensive events is around $10. For the cheaper events, like reaching people, having someone engage with an ad, or simple brand awareness, or even traffic campaigns where you could send these people to your store if you have a store locator on your website, which I think you should do. That cost per mil, cost to reach 1,000 people, is generally around $2 to $3. So you can reach 1,000 people for $2, which is pretty cool. So we're recommending the cheaper events for geo-targeted campaigns.
At this point, when the website still needs a lot of optimizations, it's like you're not ready to send people to go purchase from your page right now because there's a lot of things that need to be worked out before you start spending your money in that way.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. You can't just throw money at a problem. Not that this is a problem at all. You just can't there's a lot of things you have to check off and do before you can be profitable with D2C e-commerce, like conversion campaigns. One of them, making sure your website is converting at 4% pre-advertising spend. That's not a lot of sites convert at that. So you need to make sure you're converting there. You need to make sure you've really nailed down your organic social, hopefully get some influencer and UGC going for you. You need to make sure that your email funnels are all set up so that people are getting indoctrinated and educated and sold through email too. So there's a lot of things that have to happen before you should start spending on e-commerce campaigns.
in terms of organic content, do you all usually recommend cross platform sharing? So like using the same content on TikTok, Instagram, and like what do you usually recommend in terms of like getting the most engagement, or I guess getting the most like bang for your buck when creating content?
Yeah. So with Facebook and Instagram, the platforms are really different. But with Facebook, it's so hard to get engagement now. You're just not, it's because you're not reaching anybody. It's not that people don't like what you're saying. It's you can't reach anybody. You have to pay for it on Facebook. And so that's why we don't want anybody to spend very much time at all crafting an actual strategy for Facebook because of that. So a lot of the times we'll take what we're doing on Instagram and we'll share it on Facebook too. We'll take out hashtags, we'll tag appropriately, we'll link appropriately, because you can link on Facebook and you can't on Instagram, and all that good stuff. But when it comes to TikTok, it's a completely different strategy. And when it comes to Pinterest, it's a completely different strategy. So you can still use the same kind of messaging bucket and theme of the post, but the creative and the copy, it has to be different. So let's take an example for Pinterest. You want it to be a certain dimension. You want it to be a certain vertical dimension. You want to be able to send people to a link to your site. For Instagram, you want it, you have so many dimensions to work with, and you are really wanting engagement. You're wanting people to share it. You're wanting people to save it. You're wanting people to like it and comment. And then with TikTok, it's only video content. I mean, sure, you can make slideshows with photos, and that's all well and good, but it's such a completely different content strategy, because there you're not really selling as much. You're mostly connecting and entertaining. So very different strategy between Meta and TikTok. So I wouldn't recommend, if you're already creating reels for Instagram, sure, if you want to share it to TikTok and see what happens, that's completely fine. Why not? But don't expect for that to be the way you grow.
Okay, cool. Any final thoughts about Sippin Snax?
I don't know, but I need that Peppa Snacks mix.
Yeah, for sure.
We should have a party. And do
I know.
Yes. This is the perfect reminder, perfect excuse. We should get a variety pack, one of everything, test it out.
Oh yeah, that reminded me. I kind of wanted to talk about that this could work with organic or paid, but this is a great product to match with events. So anytime there's a big football game in a local one, like I don't know who plays for what North Carolina University.
That sounds right.
Run an ad 2 weeks before and just be like, hey, this is the perfect snack for the North Carolina football team.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And also you can use that for influencers to, because they're planning their parties and they can kind of like stage a cool photo and share it and be like, I'm getting ready for the game. I bought this. Here's like a discount code or a direct link that goes back to like, that's somehow connected to that influencer. So you can track, how many people are actually like tapping on their link. To buy these snacks, or I was going to say also for media opportunities, like it might just be like, Super Bowl. I mean, that's one that happens, I think people around the country celebrate that. I love how we're sports people. I'm not. But anyway, like for Super Bowl, it could be like, local, a lot of times it's like, where to get wings for Super Bowl, but it could just be like, snacks to buy or ways to like make your party platter for the Super Bowl or whatever. Could be like for the Oscar party or whatever. Yeah.
Always entertaining stories on, types of products to amp up your home entertaining game. So always think about like seasonality or events to give a reason for people to care about your product at that moment. So I think Karin or Alison, one of you guys had said like, why would you care now? give people a reason to. And so thinking about like events and seasonality whenever you're planning your social media posts, your influencer engagement, if you're doing media outreach, obviously with ads, it all ties together. So yeah, definitely kind of look at a calendar and take a few steps back and kind of plan out your quarter or your year, just like that.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you, the Rind PR team, for another great episode and a great audit.
Thanks for having us back.
Of course. Yeah, we got one more to do and then you're done with us for a little bit.
You're never fully done with us.
Nope. But anything you want to leave the audience before we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, hopefully this is super helpful for these brands and other brands that, some of these things might be able to apply to them as well, or even just like for anyone looking at social media and kind of understanding a little bit more. But besides that, if you are in the place where you're interested in thinking about PR, in addition to our kind of like regular larger scale campaigns, we do offer consulting services, and we can do audits basically just like this, more tailored. If anyone is interested in that, and you can kind of get like a PR toolkit and some best practices for those who are really wanting to learn more and apply it to their brand.
Awesome. Definitely do that. And we will link how you can get in touch with the Rind in the show notes. And then also Umai offers a free 5-day mini course. So if you're a young brand or a marketer just looking to refresh your skills, definitely sign up for our mini course. It's lots of actual tips that cover organic social, paid social, and email marketing for CPG. All right, guys, that is a wrap. Thank you so much.
My Social Circle is a CPG agency-driven podcast based out of Austin, Texas. We're excited to share more behind-the-scene insights, chats with industry leaders, and whatever else we learn along the way. Follow us on Instagram at Umai Marketing, or check out our website, umaimarketing.com. Catch you back here soon.